Hi, this is Master Gardener Joan Borgman coming to you from North Hollywood, Burbank adjacent. In our workshop today, we have 3 presentations. First, you'll hear from Roger Gray in Pasadena, talking about the science of the seasons. Then you're going to hear from Marty Lindsay, coming to you from the high desert, talking about planting, what she found in her pantry. Following that will be me, talking about planting seeds that you already have on hand. Happy gardening, everybody.
All right, time to open the doors. We have 10 folks out in the lobby, 11. And here we go. I am going to take advantage of the fact that I happen to be in control of the deck this morning, and would like to start off this morning with something I call the science of seasons. Everybody goes, boo, boring, boring, boring. Well, I'm hoping that it's not boring, and I'm hoping that it's going to be really useful for you in getting yourselves ready as we come up on the midsummer solstice. So this is Seasons, a midsummer solstice tale, okay? Yes, that's supposed to be funny. But in any case, the photo period, the amount of time that there is of daylight available is super important to plants. And we're not necessarily talking about temperatures, so we want to go through some things here. A lot of folks engage in what I call intuitive gardening. They say to themselves, well, it's warm, I'll put it in the ground, and generally it's a good idea. Your intuition will serve you. Things in Southern California are not as radically seasonal as they are other places. If you try to grow carrots in the snow, you're not going to have a lot of luck. You can grow carrots in January around here. It very, very often works really well. And if you have informed intuition, it works even better. So just a little bit of science goes a long way to help you be on the right track. That doesn't make you into a botanist. It doesn't make you into an agronomist or other kind of scientist, but we're going to try a little bit of science first to inform what we're doing by intuition in our gardens, okay? All right. First up is a seasonal primer, the science of seasons. Hey, anybody remember this from 6th grade? Excuse me, you've probably saw a drawing like this. And if you look at it carefully, you'll see that up here on the right is the summer solstice on June 21st. Excuse me, my goodness. The longest days of the year happen in the summer solstice because the earth is pointed the top towards the sun. Of course, in the northern hemisphere, it's summer. In the southern hemisphere, at the bottom, it's winter. It's not because the earth is closer. It's literally because it's tilted and the top gets more time in the sun than the bottom. Come winter, we are tilted the other way around, and we get a lot less time in the sun. That may seem obvious, but it's important for plants. Here's a closer look at it. The summer solstice, the midsummer solstice on June 21st, the longest day of the year. Up at the Arctic Circle, this part of the planet stays in the sunlight for 24 hours. Down here, at 23 degrees, on the longest day, they get 13 and a half hours. The equator, there's really no difference between winter and summer as far as the length of day is concerned. There are differences. And down south, there's only 10 hours of daylight. It's getting on towards winter there, midwinter. Well, the interesting thing is here in Pasadena, we are at 34 degrees north, which is slightly above the Tropic of Cancer by about 9 or 10 degrees. And we have 14 hours and 26 minutes or something very close to that on the longest day of the year, on the midsummer solstice. If you were to go to Michigan, they have almost a whole nother hour of summertime daylight on the midsummer solstice because they're much further north. Here's a quick graph of the amount of sunlight we get in Pasadena by month. Starting over here on December 21st, you can see that around the end of January, beginning of February, the slope increases. It starts to get sunnier faster. And it climbs and it climbs and it climbs, and then it peaks out at June 21st at 14 hours and 26 minutes. You'll also notice a couple of interesting artifacts. There's some bumps on the chart. First 2 bumps are July 21st, which is 20 minutes shorter than that longest day, and August 21st, which is another 51 minutes shorter than that longest day. Coming up in May, on May 21st, we will have 20 minutes less than the longest day as well. So you'll notice that they're very similar across May and July. It turns out this curve is shaped this way because the orbit of the Earth around the sun is actually elliptical and not circular. So when we get down towards the end, we come up along the farthest place and you can hear the tires screech, and we swing back around and come back around the sun. But what this shows you is that after the 1st of May or thereabouts, the amount of daylight increases rapidly. The midsummer solstice comes up and then decreases fairly rapidly. So by September, we have exactly the same amount, September 21st, of daylight and nighttime, or within a minute or two. So some quick bits of information that we want to correct. All right, midsummer. June 21st, midsummer solstice. Notice I keep saying midsummer. You've heard of it, Midsummer Night's Eve, Shakespeare and all that fancy stuff. That's because it is not the first day of summer. It's the middle of summer, the longest day of the year, after which every day is shorter. Okay? Starting on June 22, we saw that on the graph. So I say it again, not the first day of summer. I guarantee you have calendars in your house right now that say first day of summer on them. I guarantee you that 5 or 6 respected newscasters, maybe even the Old Farmer's Almanac, will get up and say, hey, it's the first day of summer. Not. It's a misnomer. Okay, I think we have simply confused the first day of summer with what used to be the first day of summer vacation for school. Back in my day, we got out after Father's Day, which is mid-June, because Father's Day was the last craft that we got to do in kindergarten and first grade to take home. So it's really easy to see that summer vacation, the first day of summer, we needed those kids out on the farm to do some work in midsummer. Things are growing great guns with that long photo period. And so the compromise for compulsory education was that kids could get out of school on time. We moderns are much more isolated from nature. We don't depend on the daylight to do anything much or be anywhere. We are typically hiding from it either because it's too hot or it's too cold in our hermetically sealed buildings. Some folks spend a lot more time in the hermetically sealed cars as well. So as I mentioned, it's commonly misreported. Folks have started to call it the summer solstice and not call it the first day of summer. So when's the first day of summer? We like stuff on a calendar date. There isn't really one as far as the plants are concerned. There's just a time when there's enough heat, enough daylight. But traditionally in Northern Europe, May 1st was celebrated as the first day of summer. And that works out because then your harvest is in August in a northerly area that it's going to get colder faster. Humans, of course, have played with midsummer for a long time. It was important. That's a picture of Stonehenge on Midsummer's Day. It was very important to the food cycle because it was the longest photo period and plants do things based on how much sun they get. It's related to temperature. Midsummer is rarely a cold, wintry, snowy day. On the other hand, it's also not necessarily our hottest day. The photo period, the length of the day, controls a lot of biological processes. Plants know to put the flowers out. And when they know to put flowers out, they know to set fruit by the amount of daylight that they're getting. If you're a tomato, a standard heirloom tomato, the optimal sunlight is 16 hours for a standard heirloom tomato. We don't get that in Southern California ever. They'll do fine with our 14.5, but heirloom tomatoes are happier further north, again in Michigan, where they get the longer summers, longer daytime, I should say, in the summer. Fruit ripening is often determined by photo period. If there's not enough sunshine out to create sugars in the plant, then it doesn't get the fruit as sweet or as ripe as fast or at all. Dormancy is also controlled by photo period. Typically, plants decide that it's time to put themselves to sleep for the winter by the amount of daylight that's coming in. They've found they can trick plants into staying out of dormancy by putting grow lights on them at a time when they would normally be dormant. So long photo period in Southern California does not agree with our hottest weather. We all know that it's pretty much the hottest in September and October around here, sometimes even on Thanksgiving. But in September, the days start getting shorter than the nights. The photo period is shrinking and it's no longer the longest time period. So a lot of times we'll plant stuff that needs a long photo period, but we are surprised when it doesn't grow so well in the nice warm fall. And again, I bring up tomatoes. Tomatoes, if they are growing in the fall, often will flower, but the fruit won't set, or the fruit won't get ripe, or they may not even flower. They're growing greens, great guns, because they like the heat. But if there's not enough sunlight during the day, they're not going to set fruit. All right, some photo period relevant terms, and we are one slide away from being done. I greatly appreciate your indulgence. Short day, you'll see this on plants. Generally, that means that plant can deal with less than 12 hours of daylight, which is good because most of the year is less than 12 hours. If it says long day, it really needs more than 12 hours of daylight to be working at its optimum. A plant that is day neutral is just that, it's neutral. It doesn't respond to the length of the photo period in the same way that a short day or a long day plant would. Notice those don't talk about temperature. They're not talking about cool season or warm season, but merely the length of the sunshine. Early and late talk about both sunshine and the temperature. Crops that are often called early boy as a tomato, can deal with the cooler temperature and the short sunshine. A late plant can deal with the warm temperatures, but the short daylight. If you're talking about short season, that just means wherever you live, the summer doesn't last very long because you're pretty far north and it's going to get cool real fast in August, so they grow faster. But it's related to the photo period if you don't live in Southern California. The next one is amusing. It has nothing to do with photo period directly, but it frustrates people. It says determinate and indeterminate. A determinate plant is one that grows, flowers, produces fruit, and then is done. An indeterminate plant grows, produces flowers, fruits, produces a fruit, produces a fruit, produces a flower, flowers, fruits, all through the growing season. A determinate plant can continue to grow and make greens for a very long time, but it may or may not produce any more fruit. I just planted out 48 tomato plants to give to my friends and neighbors, and they're all determinate. So they're going to get one giant crop out of it, and then they just need to rip that sucker out. As green and beautiful as it may look, it's got to go because they are for sure determinate varieties. Last bit, full and partial sun or shade, just like it sounds. If you put something in full sun that doesn't like to be that warm or doesn't like to have that much energy on it, it won't thrive. And that's just a different of shade, not of the photo period either. All right. So in a moment, I'd love to have master gardeners tell me if there are anybody with questions. You can find us down here at this link, which will be in the chat as well, facebook.com/groups/MG Community Resources. The Facebook page there will have all the old videos of the old classes. You can click over to the discussion section and leave questions for us or other master gardeners that are in that group. It is a public page. You can see it without having a Facebook account, although you have to have a Facebook account to post. All right. So, breathlessly, he said, any questions? Jessica, do we have anything come up on the chat? All right. It does make me wonder if the chat is blocked or if I was that boring, but nonetheless, if we are able to get people to chat, that's great. So I know, again, it's a little bit sixth grade. Oh, the private chats, some people are private chatting me, asking how to turn it into everything. If you scroll up, you should be able to see everyone in the meeting. And I will double check to make sure that that is not a blocked function by accident, but it should not be. All right. I will work on that and see if I can get it so that folks can get their chats out there. I see that it is blocked. Meanwhile, while I'm doing that, we are prepared to hear from Marty Lindsay. And she has a little piece that she sort of called "It's My Pantry," and I'll plant it if I want to.
Hi, I'm Marty Lindsay, a Los Angeles County Master Gardener, and I also teach a garden class at Early Head Start, and they call me Miss Marty. I am doing an experiment. I found some beans and other things in my pantry, and about 4 days ago, I put them in some water and tried to sprout them, and almost all of them have germinated. Because of where I live, it's not quite time to plant beans, so I'm going to plant them in some containers. The main reason being is that because these are dry beans from my pantry, I don't know if they are the climbing type or if they're the bush type. And if I have them in a container, I can adapt the container for whatever type of bean they are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with these black beans. And I'm just going to put them in the pot, and if I can get my camera person to come up super close, you can see how most of these beans have sprouted already. You see the sprout that's coming out the bottom. Ordinarily what you want to do with beans is you want to make a hole and you want to plant them twice as deep as they are big. But since these are so delicate and they already have the seed on them that are sprouted, what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently mound some soil on top of these. And I'm going to try to space them out a little bit so that they're not too crowded in here. Okie dokie. Here's some soil. If I was ready, I would have had a shovel, but since I'm not ready, I'm just going to gently put some soil on top of here, and then I'm going to make sure to mark this with black beans, and then I will come back and show you guys in about a week how they're doing. Goodbye for now.
All right, and Marty, do you need the slideshow next? Hey.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, for those of you who did not hear, I'm Marty Lindsay. I'm a master gardener that lives in northwest Los Angeles County. I'm in a transition zone on the very edge of the Mojave Desert, so I have a different climate than most people. So when I recorded that video, it was about 2 weeks ago, so it was a little early for me to plant beans. Now it's the perfect time to plant beans, and it's never too late for most people to plant them in California. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, I started this pantry project in the middle of April. And the first thing I did is I went into my pantry to see what I had. So next slide, please. And when we get to the next slide, you'll see in my pantry, I found black beans, white beans, black-eyed peas, lentils, chia seed, flaxseed, and sunflower seeds. Like for a produce stash, I had some horrible potatoes that had sprouted. I tried some seeds from a Roma tomato, and I tried some seeds from a yellow pepper. Okay, so the next slide. Oopsie. What I did is I soaked them overnight. And I tell you that this is my little trick. I don't know if it's going to work for everybody, but I tend to get really great germination, and I can't tell you if it's a scientific fact or if it's just my personal preference, because I'm a master gardener. I kind of need to clarify that. So when I sow a seed, I put a tiny bit of hydrogen peroxide in there, and it's similar to scoring a seed, but I also feel like peroxide has the healing power of oxygen in it, so I think it just gives it a little bit of an extra, something that it needs to help it grow. So I soaked them overnight and put them in some plastic bags to sprout. And literally 2 days later, these sprouted and were ready to move into the garden.
Okay, so next slide will show that I just found some containers that were hanging around my ranch. There's some old nursery pots that I planted the beans in, and then that tub used to be the dog water tub, and I planted the potatoes in there. It's kind of hard to see with scale, with the scale, but the big aluminum pot is about 2.5, 3 feet across. It's pretty big. And those nursery pots, I believe, are the 5-gallon pots. So they look small in this picture, but they're actually pretty big. Okay, can I get the next slide? So I'm going to talk about, some of the things that I did. The first one I'll highlight is the black-eyed peas. You'll see that the first day 1, 2 is I put them in the nursery pot, soil on top of it. And the reason that I did that, usually when you plant a bean or a big seed, you want to plant it a couple of inches, like twice as deep as the seed is big. But when they're sprouted like that, they're really delicate. So you want to just make sure that you respect the root on there and you don't damage it. So I just put a little bit of soil on top of that. And then about 10 days later, they had sort of grown, but not that great. But because here we just started getting hot temperatures, and the evening temperatures, like within the last week, stopped dripping into the 30s and 40s. The evening temperatures are 50s and 60s now. And so you'll see that the black-eyed peas really took off in that last week. Okay, so can I get the next slide? I think have done the best thus far. So you'll see day 1, they really just had the little first leaves coming out of the sprout. Day 1, 2. Day 10, they were prolific. And then day 16, I mean, you can tell. And I still don't know if these beans are going to be the pole climbing type, or if they're going to be the bush type. So I'm just kind of waiting to see what happens. Going back to slide the peas are pretty much always either kind of binding or climbing. So the peas I'll probably put some supports in. I'm not sure with the beans yet. Okay, so the next slide is flax. A lot of people get flaxseed and they grind it up, or they get the whole seed. This is literally just a package of flaxseed that I got from either the 99-cent store or Trader Joe's. And the flax did not come very quickly. Like I took a picture of it at day 10 and it looked almost exactly like it did on day 1. And then on day 16, you can really see the flax has started to take off. And that particular flower the picture that says Jump to the Future, that is a picture of my garden when I lived in San Diego. And flax seeds will generally either be red or blue, but they're really a pretty little flower. And like I said, you get a ton of them for a very little amount of money if you just buy them at the grocery store. Okay, next slide. Are my lentils. And the lentils did not sprout as quickly as my other seeds. They separated, so they looked like they were going to sprout, and then they just kind of hung out. And then that's day 7 that they finally sprouted. And they were in the house. And then they finally started to grow a little sprout on day 16. So you can tell the lentils are one that they either just need hotter temperature, ones that I had took longer to germinate. And then again, I mean, these are just things I found in my pantry. This isn't like, a seed packet that was grown the previous season for the next season. This is, hi, it's been sitting in my pantry for probably a year or more. Okay, next slide. Okay, Jessica Yeager did a fantastic presentation on how to grow potatoes. I'm just going to highlight it very briefly. But if you go to the Master Gardener Facebook page, her presentation really does explain how to do it. But basically, day 1, it was that awful bag of potatoes. Day 10, they still, they just had started to come up a little bit. Day 16, I mean, you can tell that the potatoes are really taking off. And then what I did after I took this picture is I did what's called hilling them, because the potato grows out of the sprout that's growing up. So I just went ahead and covered that with dirt. And in that particular container, I'll probably hill it 2 or 3 times. And then you just kind of wait for it to grow and for the greenery to die back, and then you'll find potatoes. I will mention very quickly that I grow potatoes with children pretty much year round, and I always grow them in containers because they're super easy to find. If you grow potatoes in a raised bed or in the ground, they're almost impossible to find, and it can get to be really frustrating. So I suggest find a big container and grow potatoes in a container. Okay, next slide. Okay, here's the yellow pepper. I thought that the yellow pepper was not going to do anything. So that was day one. I took a picture day 5 and then day 10, and it was pretty much nothing. And then like I looked yesterday on day 16, and they might be too far gone for me to transplant them. I'll have to get back to you on that. So the yellow peppers took longer to sprout, and I think it's for a couple of reasons. When Roger was talking about like the day, I think that has a lot to do with it, and also temperature. Okay, next slide. Okay, so what was successful? The next slide will show you that almost all of the beans and the peas did really great. The black beans, the white beans, the black-eyed peas, they all did really well. Potatoes do really well. And I think it's one of the easier things to grow, and particularly since I said I grow with kids, it's something that is always fun for them. So that was successful. Next slide is what might be. I'm pretty sure that the chia and the flax and the yellow peppers and the lentils will be successful, but it's just a little too soon. I didn't really talk about the chia. They really are the same thing. I bought a package of seeds at the 99-cent store. It's the same thing that goes on a chia pet. And the chia seeds come, they're really a pretty flower. They're probably about 2 feet tall, and they're either purple or kind of indigo blue. It's really a nice addition to your garden. And, if you have chia seeds, throw some out there. Okay, next slide is what was unsuccessful. And I'm going to tell you that this was unsuccessful this go around for me, but typically the raw sunflower seeds from Trader Joe's, I have a great success rate with. I grow those in the preschool. I grow those at the high school with the special needs kids. And I also grow them on my ranch, and I've never not had them germinate, but they didn't work for me this year. I don't know whether, or this go around, I don't know whether it's because of the batch or, something. My tomato seeds, I generally have pretty good luck with growing tomatoes from a seed. I think maybe one of the problems might have been is that the tomatoes that I bought at the grocery store probably came from Mexico, and a lot of times those seeds are irradiated, which means that they're successful. So my tomato seeds just molded. So that was not successful for me. Okay, so finally, the last slide is, give it a try. You really have nothing to lose, particularly like when you're home, you're looking in your pantry, and as you can see, the first slide is a white bean, and that was literally after 2 days. And then the second little slide that I threw in there is just to kind of show you that artichoke plant is probably like 6 feet across, and I planted that from a seed a couple of years ago. And then I guess that's pretty much it. To kind of wrap, growing things out of your pantry is cheap/free, and you don't have to go anywhere. So with that, if I have any questions, I can take them now.
All right. I am thinking that we're having a problem with the chat. Somehow they're only going off into the ether. And when our next presenter comes up, I will be able to go look for more. Master Gardeners, did any of you catch any either private or public questions? Yeah. I know our group, I know you guys online there have a bucket of questions, and I just have to figure out where they're going in order to find it. Oh, somebody just said, now I see the chat, which should be available to everyone. So it's typically off to the right, or there's a little button that says chat. In any case, thank you, Marty. I greatly appreciate it. I love the video. I hope it came through a little better than our previous video work. Araceli, do we have a question that you want to post? Can you unmute yourself? Yes.
Yes. Rachel asked, do chia seeds from the store really germinate? They aren't treated, question mark.
Okay, so everything that I showed you came from the store and then from my pantry. So not only was it from the store, it was stored and had been sitting around for probably 6 months. So the only thing that you can do is try it out. Some things probably are treated, but for the most part, I mean, it's stuff that you're going to eat. It grew out of the ground.
Right, and occasionally there will be a version we know that won't produce fruit, and it'll be an interesting experiment to find out that you have one that is not going to produce. On the other hand, free food. Woo. All right. Do we have any other questions coming up? I think I see. Can you also plant sweet potatoes in a container?
I'm going to refer to Jessica on that. Jessica did a great presentation on growing potatoes and sweet potatoes. Can you address that, Jessica?
While she's getting herself unmuted, there we go.
So I've always had sweet potatoes in a raised bed. You would need quite a big container. They grow differently than a regular potato. So they kind of vine out. They produce these long vines that travel along the surface of the soil. And everywhere there's contact with the soil, that vine will send out new roots and potentially give you more sweet potatoes at that point of contact. However, it's often recommended that you lift those vines out of the soil so that you get fewer potatoes that are bigger. So I don't have a lot of experience with the container. I would say something like the size of Marty's container where she's growing the potatoes might work. I would just, if your vines get long enough and spill over and are touching the ground again, just make sure that you're, once a week or so, just lifting those vines up so that they're new roots into the ground. Otherwise, you'll get a lot of little sweet potatoes as opposed to one bigger bunch of them.
And yet that might make for an interesting dish, miniature sweet potatoes.
Yes.
I saw a question went by. It said, I have tried planting artichokes, but they never end up being very edible, small and tough. Thoughts? And my first thought was, they're perennial, and in most places in Southern California, and year after year, the buds get bigger. But Marty, you've obviously got some nice big artichokes going on and some tasty looking ones. What's your response?
Okay, so artichokes, if they're small and they're tough, they need more water. And I think that is something that in California we tend not to do. We tend to underwater a lot of crops. I got to tell you, artichokes love water. And the ones that were in that slide, I took a picture of those yesterday. And I mean, we got, I don't know, like 15 inches of rain up here over the rainy season. They love rain, and that's why that plant is 2 years old. I don't like how big it is. That bed that it is in right now has strawberries and artichokes, and the artichoke plant started out really small, and it just grew to that gigantic thing. So I'm going to rip that out after these artichokes. Roger said, you got to, sometimes it looks green and pretty, and you just got to rip it out.
Awesome. So I see a couple other questions, but I do want to real quick get in our third presentation, and then if we have time for some more questions, we can do that. If we don't get to your question, remember you can go to that community resources page. Perhaps someone will put it up in the chat for us again. On Facebook, MG Community Resources group, and it will have these videos as well as links and the ability to hit the discussion section and ask your question directly with any of us on the call and other Master Gardeners as well. There's also an LA County Master Gardener helpline, which you can use. And there's the link to the Facebook community resources just popped up in the chat if you want to cut and paste it. All right. Joan, we want to hear more about some seeds, but we're talking about some more information about the kind you get in the nice flat envelopes as opposed to the sort in your store that come with directions and everything, right?
Yes, it seems like we're going to be talking a lot about seeds and what you got. So I have just some photographs to show you about what I had at home, what I have at home, and what I did. And it won't be a big slideshow, but this is, I'm calling mine, well, even more about seeds or got seeds or plant them if you got them. So I'm going to try to start a slideshow. Let's see, I thought I knew how to do this. So let's see, share. All right, hello everybody. Even more about seeds, where can new gardeners begin? And again, I'm taking this from the point of view of myself and my fellow Master Gardeners. We were all beginning Master Gardeners once and learned a lot. Before our Master Gardener training or whatever else we learned personally in school, we learned a lot by trial and error and hands-on experience. And we know many of you, not everyone, many of you are starting from scratch. We did too. I have heard a lot of Master Gardeners say, oh boy, have I killed a lot of plants in my time. I have as well. And again, take this, our sheltering in place time as a time to experiment. And remember, on the other hand, we are here to help you. So if you got seeds, you may have some on hand, as well as the ones like we were just hearing about, besides the one in the pantry. You may have in the past, you may have purchased seeds. You may have acquired some from us at a farmer's market table, for instance, or maybe you've even saved some seeds. So I want to show you some of what I had on hand, which is a small amount compared to what maybe some other Master Gardeners have on hand. I've purchased some, I've acquired some from friends, etc., like you may have, or my friends may have. We all have a lot of seeds. Master Gardeners do. It may be considered a little crazy by some. We like to think of it as we are optimistic and we love them. So rather than just jumping in and planting them all, unless you have as much room as Marty does, I want to then tell you, take a step back. Don't plant them all. I mean, yes, plant them all if you really, really want to, but think about it. If they all grow, where are you going to put them all? Yes, maybe you can share a lot of them with friends, but just keep that in mind. Don't share them all. Don't plant them all. Excuse me. Yes, share them all. All right. I wanted to show you what I happen to have on hand for planting seeds. I happen to have some of these little cardboard pots and some leftover 4-inch pots and some 6-packs and 4-packs from plants that I had purchased. And you'll see I also have berry containers and plastic containers from takeout foods, and some of them have holes in them already, which is they're already ready to go because they're good for drainage. And the others don't. Sometimes you could either poke holes in them or you can use them to put your others in so that you don't, if you're worried about they're going to drain all over the place and ruin your surfaces. Anyway, I'm saying use what you have and you can adapt them for what you need. I also want to advise you to, I want to advise you to label everything you've planted. Even if you just plant 1 or 2 things, you say, oh, I'll remember what I planted. Well, personally, I don't always remember, or maybe I've wanted to remember how long ago I planted them. like we saw in our last presentation, different seeds take different amounts of time to germinate. And even if we saw in the last presentation, some took longer to germinate than she thought would. Some were faster to germinate than she thought would. And you'll see I have, a Sharpie, I have a pencil, I have old seed markers from things that I had purchased before, new ones, as well as popsicle sticks, and even cut up plastic containers like yogurt containers, saying just you can use so many different things for marking what you've planted. And I want to show you an experiment I did now and why I did it. I looked around in my garden, and knowing that I wasn't going to go out shopping to any nursery to get new basil, because I wanted more basil. And I have some, thank goodness, some plants that are holdovers from last year, but they're not producing that well. And I went through my seed stash and I saw I had one packet of basil seeds that were really old. What I mean is all of your seed packets will say either, mine said that to sell by December 2014. Okay, that's a long time ago. I said, what the heck? I'm going to go ahead and try it. Now you can do, if you have a little more time, I wanted to get mine growing right away. You can do a germination test. And that would be you take a specific amount of seeds, say 10, and you put them on a paper towel or a paper napkin, and you keep them damp. And let's say if just one of them germinates, well, you have 1 out of 10 have grown. That's a 10% germination rate. And or if you say 55 of them have grown, you have a 50% germination rate. So you can do that. I didn't do that. I just went ahead and planted in, maybe you can't quite tell here, I planted in four packs, and I've marked them. You see I planted with the date. I marked them with the date I planted them, and I got a week later, I have these many growing. I have those many growing. So I don't know necessarily they're all going to make it, but if one of them makes it, I'm going to be pleased. If more of them make it than that, I'm going to be very pleased, and I will have more basil growing than I do now, and maybe we'll have some to share. So I know that this in a way echoes what Marty said and what we've said in previous workshops, but I just want to say, plant them if you got them. If you have some seeds, it's better than nothing in our COVID quarantine time. And please call us for any questions. And thank you very much. Stay healthy, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Joan. That really makes an important point, I think. The seed packets all have this packed for the 2014 season, the 2018 season, and that's when they're optimal and when the stores can sell them. And the stores like you to get an 80-90% germination rate, so you're pleased with your purchase, right? But if you're like me and Joan, we have seed packets. I found one from 2013 the other day, and I actually did get one cantaloupe plant out of an entire seed packet. But that's one that I didn't have before. So good advice to be brave and get them out there. Do we have any questions, Master Gardeners, that you want to put up?
Sure,
Sure.
I'll ask one. It
Okay.
says, what would you recommend for germinating and starting seeds off in a windowsill? This is a person from an apartment, and they have a large south-facing window, and for the most part, it's great, but some have been getting kind of stretchy and leggy.
Cool. Joan, do you want to take that one on?
I'd say I'm not going to think of anything just off the top of my head, but On one hand, it's a matter of researching to seeing what we need to plant this time of year, as we have talked about before. And as for the legginess, it has to do with the seedlings are probably not getting enough sunlight at this time, so they'll need a little more. You'll need to get a sunnier location. Does anyone else have a better answer for that one? I know
Well,
that's very general what I'm saying.
I won't say better, but let me amplify what you just said that I think is important. If you're in a windowsill, you are indoors and you're not getting a lot of direct sunlight. At the very least, it's filtered through glass. And a lot of glass has a UV filter built in, and plants use a lot of the spectrum of light, including light that we don't want in our house. So if they are stretching to reach the light, it's probable that they need to be out in the sunlight already. And it may be that they're past the sprout stage and it's time to transplant them into their forever home and not leave them on the windowsill. If you're trying to grow things on the windowsill, then I would say grow stuff that you want to be leggy. Oregano, because you want lots of tendrils out everywhere so you can chop off the branches and put them out to dry and have dried herbs. But corn, which doesn't like to be transplanted, is going to waste a lot of time and energy trying to reach the sunlight. It wants to be outdoors right away. Awesome. Any other comments on the windowsill piece?
Well, I just add you could also use plant lights indoors. And with LED technology now, there's a lot of different fairly inexpensive lights you can get with lots of different configurations that'll help with this problem.
Yes, and I think that's an important point, because those plant lights have full spectrum light that we don't have in our indoor spaces. And again, our windows are often tinted in a way that they reduce the fabric degrading light that comes in and fades your couch. Awesome. I did see a quick question about carrots, and the question was, I have a terrible trouble with carrots. And I'm going to repeat what Master Gardener Jones said to the questioner, and that is, carrots are persnickety. They take their own good time to germinate. They don't germinate necessarily all together. So getting a nice long row of carrots is not as common as you would think. We planted over 400 carrots in a school garden box, and we got an entire crop of a couple hundred carrots and thought there were no more. And we're about to plant something else when we noticed the other 200 were starting to sprout. Carrots, go figure. In any case, remember that if you have more questions or we didn't get to your question, we do have that community resources page. I'm hopeful that somebody can put it back in the chat for you. Look for us on Facebook, MG Community Resources, or the Los Angeles County Master Gardener Facebook page. And even if you're not currently on Facebook and don't have a Facebook account, those pages are public and you should be able to get to them without a Facebook account. I'm not going to guarantee that, but you should be able to. Failing that, there's of course the helpline and the telephone number for the helpline as well, if you have specific Southern California questions. Awesome. Master Gardeners, do you have anything that you'd like to add to our workshop this afternoon or this morning? You can tell I'm already thinking about getting out in the yard, and that I've got corn starts that I want to fix, and I've got some tomato seedlings. I need to figure out who's going to come and take them away. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're coming up on an hour, and that's our goal, is to try to not exceed that. Once again, we're Los Angeles County Master Gardeners. We will be doing this through the month of May with certainty. I do want to give you all a heads up, though. There may be a different link next time. So keep your eye on the location where you found us the first time, and there should be additional information. We may be switching platforms over to the University of California Zoom account, so that may necessitate some small changes. There may also be a pre-registration, which is not a big deal, just a formality, so we know what kind of numbers we're looking at. But again, we'll put all that information out in the next 2 or 3 days. For next week, we will be Tuesday at 10 for the month of May. And we will decide about June to see if we're all back out and running around the world, or if we are still gardening in place. Awesome. Master Gardeners, if you'd stick around for about 5 minutes. Everybody else, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.